So to set the scene for our day, we wanted to hear from a key figure at the heart of international scientific work on climate today. He's head of research at Deltares and co-chair of IPCC Group 2, devoted to impacts, adaptation and vulnerability. Please welcome Bart van den HURK.
Thank you very much. I hope the translation works because my French is not as good as it should be. But I feel so welcome, and you must be blessed with a mayor like that. How can every pitch today overtop the significance of the topic that we're talking about today for cities? How can we ever overtop political commitment to what's happening? How can we overtop the messages of hope, of justice, of reality, the notion that the city is, a holistic, what was she say? A holistic place where everything comes together at the same time. Well, I couldn't do a better pitch from a scientific perspective, but I'll try. Oh, thank you very much. I'll try to give a bit of a reflection on what the IPCC, or in French, the GIEC, is planning to do with its special report on climate change and cities. After me, Valérie Masson, one of the authors of the cities report, will also give a pitch probably relating to it. But when we started this 7th cycle of IPCC, of course, that was 2 years ago, we were, as a new team of co-chairs and vice-chairs, we were, of course, very ambitious, like every starting team, I guess. But we do sense the sign of the times as an era where we really need to make a difference in the IPCC contribution to taking action. We do see that 40 years of climate reality and 30 years of climate science evidence assessed by IPCC hasn't yet made the difference that we need to make in order to bring this problem under control. And so we do anticipate, we do aspire to reach the people that can make a difference. We do continuously ask ourselves, does this piece of information change the position in a boardroom? Does it really matter to know about this kind of evidence when you are to decide on something where climate is an element? That action orientation means that we need to understand what is actually the action agenda and the action realm, the action potential, and we need a lot of stakeholder, what we call stakeholder aspiration. We do want to try to avoid climate as sort of a standalone and easy to fix and one solution kind of thing. We want to embed it in say, the action agenda much more, and that means that, yeah, we have to navigate a bit on that crossing points where we, as a scientific entity, we should be, of course, policy neutral. We are not the holders of the value discussion in society. That is the political system. That are the civil organizations and people like yourself. We are here to support that political debate with evidence. But I do think that we can approach that line of policy, well, we don't want to be policy prescriptive, but we can approach that line by making clear how, say, political attitudes or ground values, how they actually project onto actions, which projects onto impacts of those actions. And we can be a bit more close to that relationship. Of course, IPCC always has made different scenarios. If the world succeeds in this part, then we go there, and if we go with this emission pathway, we go there. Of course, that already is some kind of a policy prescriptive kind of messaging, but I think we can go a bit deeper. That is one of the ambitions, and I'm trying to illustrate how we try to do that in this cities report. We also embrace very much Anna Hidalgo's claim that everything comes together at the same time. Every time a mayor's council has to take a decision, many things come at the same time together. There's no way, never ever a decision that is only addressing climate. It's always combined with mobility. It's always combined with labor power. Or it's always combined with education, so to say. So an integrated perspective of what the topic actually is about is really, really crucial. Inside the house of IPCC, we have these, different working groups. Working group 1 on the climate physics, say, or the climate reality, climate science. Working group 2 on the impacts, vulnerability, adaptation, our working group. And working group 2 on the emissions and on the sectoral contributions, the energy systems. But these silos, they merge more and more. Also, the cities report that we're doing is carried by the 3 working groups. We have a structure and the selection of authors carried out by the joint collection, and we don't have working group chapters anymore in that cities. So inside, we bring that integration across, but also in the types of messaging, we keep on an eye, where does this information land? And finally, we need to speak the language of people that matter, that are affected. It's not a science speaks truth to society kind of thing. We need to bring society inside of the scientific assessment to have a picture of what evidence actually is and how meaningful it is at the action platform. So we deal a lot, again, IPCC is very well, has very well been able to set up an organizational structure that ensures that all regions in the world are represented in the organizational body, in the author pools, in the reviewers, etc. But we also still see that the majority of the scientific products are generated in wealthy global north countries. A majority of review comments come in from global north entities, and a minority of largely underrepresented groups in all over the world actually are part of the assessment system, and we really want to improve on that, to bring in more and more views, because that is the only way evidence can make an impression when it comes to a decision. We scoped the cities report here in Europe, in Latvia, in April last year. And that was an interesting enterprise. It was a bit of a tense, sometimes a bit of a tense process. I mean, some of you may have been there as well. But because normally IPCC works at national level. We have an organizational structure where the 195 UN member states actually set the scene and make IPCC. And so normally we make products that are tailored to the national level. And now we go down to the regional level, the city level, the level where a lot of action takes place, as Anna also makes clear. And that means in the room of scoping, we also brought in people that have quite a lot of, experience as a practitioner, as, a major's office, as a consultant, a financial expert, working at the city level. And there, that sort of, debate between scientific synthesis or abstraction versus, local, political, whatever, reality at the ground, that sometimes was a bit difficult to merge. But I think that tension worked out. And it was actually on purpose that we seek this tension, because we have actually come up with a very elegant, very simple story of a chapter outline with only 5 chapters. And it's great to commit to the call from the audience of IPCC reports. Please avoid these 29.4 kilos of reports that were produced in the previous cycle. Please keep it thin and to the essence, and please make it a story that I can tell to my stakeholders. And 5 steps make a better story than 20. First step, first chapter, what is a city? How do we actually make sense of this huge diversity of cities? We talk about typologies. We also talk about case studies aggregation, how we do that. But it's really about set the scene, what is the city, what's happening over there. The second story is what's actually driving a city. And of course, climate change is a part of the driver, and we need to go down to the city level to make climate change information, impacts information at the city level. But there's much more. There's also action agendas at the local level set a deal. Information provisions, local scenarios being used, local effects that affect, the vulnerability of the mitigation potential. That all is sort of the diagnosis part of the report. This is about, tell me what's wrong with me. Where do I need to take attention? Chapter 3 is trying to make an analysis. Okay, this is maybe a pathway for solution, or maybe a set of solutions. And again, as Anna said, there is no such thing as a single solution. We need to embrace quite a large palette of them. Solutions work out differently in developing countries than they are here. Informal settlements have quite a different portfolio of solutions than well-established, democratically governed cities like Paris. So solution space is a big thing, has a lot of diversity, but makes sense because it calls to the action potential. But we all know that a patient coming to a doctor getting a subscription for a medicine, there's no guarantee that that patient will keep using its medicine until the very end. Because there is enabling surroundings and barriers in the surroundings. There is an environment that actually sets the ability of that patient or whatever to take that action. And that is why chapter 4 is an interesting one. It's looking at the context. What does it need to make these solutions work? Even the best available information doesn't guarantee that a city can have, say, the electoral support, or the financial support, or the governance system, or the resources needed to implement the solutions. So chapter 4 is really about the environment of it. And chapter 5 is actually what the lead authors of chapter 5 call, actually it's the starting point for the report for practitioners. This is where they start looking for, because this is where we illustrate how does it work in practice. So this is more case study oriented. This is more like the bottom-up part of the process. Let's look at a plethora of case studies from all kinds of countries, contexts, problems, settings, whatever. How does it work? What did work? What didn't work? Why did it work? Where was the finance problem? Where was the governance problem? That's chapter 5. See, 5 chapters, 1 slide, a couple of cartoons, that's the entire story. And so much to talk about. So where we are now, we are in the middle of what we call the internal draft, or the zero-order draft, which is, we just got it completed last weekend, and that will be reviewed internally. So this is the first set of ideas that every chapter has put together, where we will look at. And we started the compilation of this first draft, that internal draft, in our first lead author meeting that took place in March in Osaka, in Japan. And we are heading for Mombasa in Kenya in July this year to actually talk about that first draft, that internal draft. Okay, where do we see, necessary stitches between chapters? Where can we, pick up a bit more clear message? Where can we leave out stuff? Where is duplication? That is the discussion we'll have in Osaka. We'll have another lead author meeting early next year in Oslo, in Norway. And the fourth one is somewhere mid-26, still to be planned. And the whole project, the whole report needs to be ready in March 2027. That is when we bring it to the panel for approval of the summary for policymakers. And if accepted, and we hope it will, of course, then it will go out for public. And it doesn't stop there. We need a lot of communities, like your organizations, to help disseminate, because I'm sure that there will be so much material presented in that report that needs to be picked up, tested in practice, followed up in subsequent actions, whatever. So the outreach stage doesn't stop in March 2027. We'll be working on this outreach work for years, together with a lot of partners that are linked to the project. Yeah, as I said, we care about inclusivity, diversity. We also, in the author pool, we made sure that every chapter has, all the continental representation inside of the chapter. Every chapter is about 15 to 20 people, so there's a bit of room to make sure that Latin America and Asia are all in there. But we also made sure that in every chapter, not only the academic hotshots with zillions of high-level papers are in the chapters, but also people new to the IPCC or more in the practitioners area. And you get really different conversations. We do get testifies from the lead authors in the group that, it's a different process. Also a bit more difficult. More people that need more time to, get used to it, to make sure, we need to make sure that people dare to speak up, that they feel confident in that group of fellow authors to, bring in their voice. That is not for granted. It's culturally and personally determined how, confident people are in a group like that. So we pay attention to that as well. But for sure, we make sure that people meet, talk, and have a joint aspiration. That is, of course, the best binding element for this. So where we are I already drafted a bit on the timeline. So we are in the internal draft, and this is a bit of the timeline. But as I said, we do anticipate to get the report approved at the final IPCC session in March. Finally, we need a lot of people to work on it. Of course, we have the experts in that already helped in the scoping. That part has been done already. Although the scoping actually keeps on going, we still have conversations with all kinds of city networks that say, hey, we have this database, can you do something with that? Or, hey, this kind of problems are still being underrepresented, can you do something about it? We are still open for that kind of processes, but we formally have to bring it all to the authors that are drafting the report. They are active, they work hard, they gave up holidays to make that internal draft. I feel sorry for them, but we also get a lot of positive aspirations from the authors, how wonderful it is to be in such a diverse team and to pick up so steeply all that brilliant knowledge from the other fields, because we have brought in a tremendous mix of different expertises, and there's nothing more rewarding than to have your curiosity being satisfied in a group where you work with jointly. So it's hard work, but it's rewarding, we hear. We have engagement with stakeholder networks. We will call out for reviews of draft reports and maybe also set up a couple of, review information webinars where we can actually inform the stakeholder networks on how the report review actually works and how we can actually facilitate and increase their input. Because reviews actually make a big contribution to the final reports. A lot of final text actually is inspired by review comments from the externals. Of course, the scientists can still write papers. The cutoff date for this report is somewhere in fall 2026, so that is 1.5 years from now. But we also are keen to pick up, what we call grey literature, lots of reports that are produced by bureaus like the Mayor of Paris, where we see the evidence of that adaptation plan that is being implemented. That can be helpful material for the report. So bring in material. And then, as I said before, the outreach at the end. There is so much to talk about after the report has been. There's so much more tailoring possible, translation to your language, to your context, digital products, story maps, whatever. There's so much more possible after the report, and we need everyone for that. So thank you very much. I'm still around for today, all day, and there's a short opportunity to ask questions. Thank you for your attention so far.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Bart.